Hey guys, it's me, Ness, and I'm going to react to the first ever WWE Elimination Chamber match. And knowing that the Elimination Chamber is right around the corner, we did witness that there are qualifying matches so far to determine who deserves to be part of the Elimination Chamber. But right now, we're going to watch the very first Elimination Chamber match back in Survivor Series 2002. And this declares how it really changed the complexion of WWE in terms of adding cage matches such as the Elimination Chamber as a gateway where they put this type of structure into schedule before WrestleMania in order for the winner of the Royal Rumble to determine that by the time that he won and faced a championship of their choosing, then we got the Elimination Chamber that declares who deserves to go forward at WrestleMania for the champion that the Rumble winner did not choose. So let's get into this reaction of the very first ever WWE Elimination Chamber match. Man. The I love you. I think that was the song of Saliva. The I love you and I hate you. That was a
World
good
Wrestling
song.
Entertainment's Elimination Chamber match made its debut at the 2002 Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden. This new match type featured 6 Raw superstars locked inside a brand new structure, and the winner of the match would be awarded the World Heavyweight Championship. And just like most new match types that the WWE introduces via pay-per-view, many fans were intrigued and curious about how this match would play out. The first Elimination Chamber match was well received, spawning a series of chamber matches, and eventually the match type evolved into its very own pay-per-view. But today we're just going to focus on the first match, a match that went wrong in more ways than one, but yet it still turned out to be a great main event. This is the first ever Elimination Chamber match.
Yep.
It's 2002 and we're in the Ruthless Aggression era. Raw and SmackDown are competing against each other to see who can put on the best shows and who can attract the best talent, while Raw competing against each other. 2002 and we're in the Ruthless Aggression era. Raw and SmackDown are competing against each other to see who can put on the best shows and who can attract the best talent. While Raw and SmackDown were obviously under the same WWE umbrella, there was actually a pretty real competition between the two brands behind the scenes, with each show having a separate team of writers and producers. The show's general managers, however, would have a much more typical rivalry where Raw's Eric Bischoff would be the heel, while SmackDown's Stephanie McMahon would be the babyface. Now, this wasn't always the case. There were plenty of times where Stephanie would turn heel for a few weeks, depending on the storyline, but you get the picture. Eric and Stephanie would feud just as much as the wrestlers they managed, and it made for pretty good TV. Many fans loved this era of WWE. Eric and Stephanie would try to one-up each other at every given opportunity, whether that be through the signing of new superstars, superstar defections, or booking main event matches that would take the shine away from the opposing brand. The Elimination Chamber, in storyline, was introduced by Eric Bischoff to counter SmackDown's Hell in a Cell match that took place at No Mercy the month prior. That match featured Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker. The cell match between Lesnar and Taker was good, and the brutality was turned up a few notches for the No Mercy main event, and so Eric wanted to give fans more at Survivor Series 2002. In storyline, it was Eric Bischoff who came up with the Elimination Chamber match, but in reality it was actually Triple H who developed the match type. In an article posted on WWE.com, Triple H said, "I'm the one who invented it. I drew a square cage and put 4 other squares in the corners, and I said, it's 6 guys, 2 start, and every few minutes another cage opens and 1 more guy enters the fight, and everyone fights until there's 1 guy left. I thought it could be interesting because if the superstars involved have issues, then there's intrigue. In typical WWE form, it was twice as big as I envisioned it and twice as elaborate. We don't do anything small, so I should have known better. When I stood in front of it for the first time, I thought, geez, please don't tell anybody this was my idea.
It's kind of crazy though, because we all thought that it was Eric Bischoff, but the fact that Triple H made this idea, and then at some point, Triple H became the multi-winner of Elimination Chamber matches, and at the same time, made a structure or made a concept that is going to change the landscape of WWE forever, which is insanely good. And according to him, please don't tell anybody this was my idea. That's basically like Triple H doesn't want to get all the praise, despite that, he invented something that's going to be great for the product.
Normally, I would say here to take anything written on WWE.com with a pinch of salt, but Eric Bischoff was actually questioned about this on Twitter, and Eric confirmed it was indeed a Triple H creation. It was also reported that Triple H actually wanted to do War Games at Survivor Series 2002, but Vince McMahon shot down the idea. On TV, though, this was all Eric's creation, a way for the Raw brand to one-up SmackDown. On the 21st of October episode of Raw, Eric Bischoff said, "That Hell in a Cell match between Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker, it was a spectacle, but it's gonna pale in comparison to the match I have in mind. You see, at Survivor Series, you're gonna witness an ingenious creation, one that could only come from the mind of Eric Bischoff. At Survivor Series, you will bear witness to the Elimination Chamber." Not a lot was given away here, but we found out a little more information the following week. Eric Bischoff said that the Survivor Series 2002 main event will feature 6 superstars from Monday Night Raw. The match will have elements of Survivor Series, the Royal Rumble, and War Games. The mentioning of War Games here really made me perk up, as it was a match I desperately wanted to see return after the WWE bought WCW. Eric says that this match will be for the World Heavyweight Championship, and that means World Champion Triple H will be part of this mystery matchup. Chris Jericho, Booker T, Rob Van Dam, Kane, and Shawn Michaels will also compete in the match. The addition of HBK was a shock, seeing as his SummerSlam 2002 return match was supposed to be a one-and-done deal. Shawn was given a week to make his decision. He had the option of not competing in the match if he didn't want to, but HBK confirmed the following week that he would take part in the first ever Elimination Chamber match. We would then see the Survivor Series commercials that showed us the blueprint for the Elimination Chamber, but we didn't see what the finished structure looked like. Fans would have to order Survivor Series on pay-per-view to see the finished Elimination Chamber steel cage. Even the wrestlers competing in the match wouldn't see the Elimination Chamber until the day of Survivor Series. When the WWE rolled up to Madison Square Garden on November 17th, 2002 though, the guys competing inside the Chamber match main event quickly noticed that this bout was going to be a lot of hard work. A WWE magazine article from 2009 said that the Elimination Chamber was built in Colorado Springs. It took up to 8 weeks to build, and it cost $250,000. 16 feet high, 36 feet in diameter, it weighs a total of 16 tons, 10 tons of steel and 6 tons of chain. While these are all very impressive numbers, it also tells us that this chamber structure was not gimmicked. This thing needed its own dedicated 50-foot flatbed truck for transportation, and it was stored offside at a dock in Newark, New Jersey. The WWE had effectively created a monster with the Elimination Chamber, and the superstars involved in the match got concerned. There was no give here. This thing was going to hurt, and there was no way around it. Chris Jericho said the following in an interview: "We didn't see it until the day of the show in Madison Square Garden, and it's one of those things you can tell was made by somebody who's not a wrestling person. It was very clunky, it was very dangerous. It's made of real graded steel. You probably could have made it out of rubber and you wouldn't have known the difference. The walls were very stiff and they didn't make any noise when you hit them, so it hurts like hell and it sounds like shit." Triple H said, "We saw it for the first time and we were like, oh god, who built this? It was the most horrible thing ever. It took us all day to figure out, how does this thing work? Everything hurt. It was just hard, rigid steel, even the chain walls. Everybody was like, oh yeah, but it's chain. Yeah, it's chain. It moved about half an inch and then it was like hitting a lumpy bag of bricks. We hadn't done much in the afternoon, we just talked a lot." Before we go any further, let's take a look at the match rules and why the Elimination Chamber was compared to the Royal Rumble match, a traditional Survivor Series match, and the War Games match. The Elimination Series, you had staggered entrants just like Royal Rumble and War Games. You have a giant cage sitting over the ring with multiple competitors fighting inside, just like War Games. And the winner was the last man standing, just like Survivor Series and the Royal Rumble matches. We should also quickly look at why these superstars were selected for the match in terms of storyline, and then we'll look at the match itself. Triple H is our champion, so of course he's going to be involved. Shawn Michaels beat Triple H in his return match at SummerSlam 2002, and the game attacked Shawn afterwards. Shawn wanted revenge, and as mentioned, he was given a choice. He could step into the Elimination Chamber to get his revenge, plus he could get a world title shot. Shawn accepted. The Big Red Machine Kane and Triple H had been feuding on TV, with both men having a main event match at the No Mercy pay-per-view. This spawned the infamous Katie Vick storyline and Triple H making a complete mockery of Kane's trouble past, so there's that. Chris Jericho at this time was a heel and also one half of the
one of the weirdest type of storyline between Triple H and Kane with Katie Big. We're not gonna go to the other stuff, but yeah, it was really weird.
Tag team champions along with Christian. The Elimination Chamber match needed more than just one heel, and Jericho was a great performer, so it made sense. Rob Van Dam came close to winning the world title from Triple H back at Unforgiven in September, but thanks to Ric Flair and a sledgehammer, the game was able to leave the Staples Center still the world champion. So RVD also had some issues with Hunter. And Booker T was teaming up with Goldust around this time period, but he too was having issues with Triple H. To be fair, these issues were minor and they only really manifested after Booker was announced as a competitor in the Elimination Chamber, but still, Booker's a great choice because he's a great wrestler. 2 heels and 4 baby faces though.
The rivalry between him and Triple H during WrestleMania 19, that was the year 2002 as well, where at that point, you could argue that Booker did win the match, which is a worse choice. And the fact that, you know, it's either Vince or I don't know if Triple H was the one who made the decision to put over. Because I feel like, you know, Booker T deserved to win that match because of the how Triple H tried to be a bit of a, well, racist towards Booker T, thinking that, oh, you're not gonna be a champion, you don't belong where we are in terms of the race, and that's how it is. But you know, it kind of has a bit of that type of rivalry, but it's been a bit too long, so I guess you could argue that it has a bit of the, you know, rivalry between him and between Hunter and Booker.
So let's look at the match while also looking at a few comments made by the competitors. First of all, we would change the design of this thing based on wrestler feedback, I assume, and logistics.
Yeah.
The new chamber's a lot smaller and it has a much more forgiving floor area, but just look at this thing right here. If you're into cage matches, then this would have been a real treat to see on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
The chamber has its own steel floor. The cage was lowered down for the main event. Eric Bound gear always gets brought up when people talk about this match. Here's a little information from Sean's book that explains the questionable attire HBK wore at Survivor Series. At SummerSlam, I wore jeans because it was a street fight. They didn't want me in jeans for this match. Julie Youngberg, our seamstress, suggested some earth tone tights. I felt games and how the heels would have an earth.
I think Triple H got crushed by his throat because, you know, the ceiling wasn't even that, you know, too high for Van Dam to execute properly. So that's why the knee went to the throat area, and then that kind of like, damn, man. The fact that Triple H finished the match with the injured throat was really impressive. That goes to show that he really, you know, dedicate his body. You know, he really showed that he's willing to sacrifice everything for the company, even if it takes his own life. And that's the thing. Like, this is one of those things that it's so unpredictable. You don't know what's gonna happen, and you know, it just happened.
RVD said, I had to alter my 5-star frog splash. Triple H said, Van Damme lands on my throat. Completely crazy, random moment in time. He was at an awkward angle and he couldn't stand up straight. He's freaked out. The worst possible scenario is happening at that moment.
Damn.
Reading Triple H's comments here and then going over to Chris Jericho's book is also quite funny, as Jericho writes about being a ring general and making sure everything goes according to plan. Chris wrote, Hunter's larynx was damaged and he could barely talk. He was in immense pain, and when I rolled over to ask him if he was okay, looking, Kane shut Shawn down with a clothesline. Again, this was what was supposed to. Shawn fights back, but Kane ends up completely dominating. Triple H, Jericho, and Shawn decide to work together in order to eliminate the Big Red Machine. Kane takes Sweet Chin Music, he gets nailed with a pedigree, and Chris Jericho hits a lion salt to take the Devil's favourite demon out of the match. Triple H is again given some recovery time as Jericho punishes everyone has been here. There was panic at first and Kane seemed to get annoyed, but if you watch this very casually...
What's crazy though is that, it's kind of funny that Kane got annoyed and then at the same time he's like, well, F it, I'm about to, wreak havoc here, despite that, things went pretty bad. And I didn't know that that was supposed to be the script or the direction where Shawn should come out and then Kane would come out last. The fact that it kind of screwed up, especially with Triple H's larynx or part of in his throat. At the same time, the moment that Chris Jericho was the floor general, of course he had to do something because it's kind of a bit like impromptu at that point. For Kane to physically be frustrated, tossing Jericho to the plexiglass, despite that Jericho and Patterson didn't like the idea, but Kane was like, well, F it. And then at the same time, Triple H took a bit of the bump, despite that, yes, he's still trying to hold it so that it doesn't have to be worse, knowing that this is one of the best elimination chambers of all time. It's the first, and the fact that things went wrong pretty quickly, it's like, damn, that's kind of insane. But hopefully that this year's elimination chamber should be all right, because again, there's a lot of remodeled and safer, that they added padding for safety, hoping that no one gets hurt too easily, especially that we're on the road to WrestleMania.
But if you watch this very casually, then you'd never know there were any problems.
Yeah.
Shawn takes a backdrop on the steel floor, but he manages to get back in the ring before Jericho. Hunter tries to take advantage, but he hits a bulldog before hitting Shawn with a lion salt, but Shawn kicks out. HBK then tries a moonsault and he even puts Y2J in the walls of Jericho, but Triple H makes the save. Hunter wants to keep this 2-on-1 advantage, it seems, but it's then made clear that Hunter actually wants to eliminate Shawn himself, and this leads to Jericho and Hunter fighting it out. Hunter's an absolute wreck here, but his entrance was another big problem. And then you have the unforgiving Elimination Chamber itself being a pretty big problem. Every competitor talked about how difficult it was to work inside. Must have been sweet for HBK though. Shawn main evented the Garden back at Survivor Series 1996 and he got booed out of the building. In 2002 though, the fans went crazy and HBK celebrated his big title win. A win that wasn't on show, but backstage there were definitely a few injuries and a few guys questioning if doing the chamber was a wise decision. Hunter had to spend 24 hours in hospital afterwards. He said he wanted to leave and doctors told him that if he does so, his throat would likely swell up and he would likely choke. This made Hunter quickly change his mind, and there are errors that you look back on and it's just like, holy shit, I can't believe it became what it became, because the first one technically was a disaster. We had to watch it back, I think this second year, to kind of remember what we did. I thought, hey, this actually turned out pretty good. Within the cage, whatever mistakes happen, nobody knows except for the guys. And that's kinda how it goes.
That, there's a lot of things that went wrong. It's kind of a bit like, damn, that's kind of a bit insane that the first ever match that we considered to be the greatest Elimination Chamber match had a lot of, problematic or botch moments that happened. But all I can say is that, shout out to Wrestling Bios all I can say is that give some likes and subscribe to his channel as well. And also I want to say is that hoping that in this elimination chamber we have for this year, it will be great, especially that it is John Cena's last elimination chamber match. And all I can say is that, you know, give it a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications for future upload of videos. And all I can say is that thank you for watching. We will see each other in the next video. Peace.